This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below. One of the most talked about topics with the Cleveland Browns has been one, Jedrick Wills. But there's been other problems along that offensive line, right? We've been talking about, Ethan Posick has been up and down, and then Wyatt Teller it's been a little frustrating there, right? With 77. So 77, 71, 55. It's just been a little bit of a struggle there. And look, 75's getting older too, right? So if you're the Browns, you're going to look at trying to refresh and flush this thing. There's been a lot of like talks about how the Browns could go about improving this offensive line during the season, and like guys like Garrett Bowles come up. I don't think Garrett Bowles is in the pile of like real possible solutions because they're already paying Jed for that 5th-year option. He's going to be almost impossible to trade if he keeps his trajectory up. So you're just going to have to eat it and say, hey, I'm paying 5, but I might not be starting off 5. Kind of like what you're doing with Dawan Jones, where it's like, yeah, it doesn't matter that we paid Jack because we still get that level of play with the money we have allowed it for the position. How do you think the Browns go about this, and how do you think they get creative with this? I know you did an article about this exact topic.
Yeah. So I'm still skeptical. I know like Brad Steinberg's reported that they'll go out and they're going to look. I remain skeptical that they are going to go out of their way to make it happen just because they have a lot of that money. But at the same time, like, you have pushed every other chip into the center of the table on like this season. Like, I don't think you can afford not to go after it a little bit, you know? So it's a really interesting question. I think if they do, I mean, they're going to have to a lot of money at offensive tackle to go out and get like a proven vet, you know, a Garrett Bowles. I think DJ Humphries is a decent candidate. Although Kyler Murray's practicing now too, so maybe the Cardinals aren't in tank mode as much as we kind of thought they were.
It's kind of
but
remarkable.
Yeah, exactly. But there aren't very many proven vets out there. They're not out there. So like, Cam Robinson is a guy I would have said because Walker Little was playing really well for the Jaguars while Cam Robinson was suspended. They just drafted right tackle Anton Harrison, but now Walker Little's hurt. And even when Walker Little wasn't hurt, when Cam Robinson came back for his suspension, they kicked Walker Little into left guard. So it's like they have a use for all 3 of those guys who could play tackle. And like, honestly, the most realistic option of a veteran to come in via the trade market is Kelvin Beachum from the Cardinals. He's a vet's vet. He started a lot of games in the NFL. He's under contract beyond 2023, near the vet minimum this year and next year. Wouldn't take a whole lot to get. Is currently playing swing tackle for the Cardinals as well right now. So like that's a guy you could go out and get in terms of like proven vets who've done it before. You can trust them to come in day one, make an impact. Kelvin Beacham's probably the most realistic candidate. I could see like Garrett Bowles being a target. I could see that happening. My pipe dream target would be Colton Miller if the Raiders choose to tear it down. But I think his cap hit is way lower than guys like DJ Humphries, Cam Robinson, Garrett Bowles, way lower, and he's a much better player than all those guys. And he's under contract for 2 years beyond this year, where all those other guys are under contract. I think actually DJ Humphries is under contract for 2 years beyond this year as well. But like Garrett Bowles is only under contract in 2024 beyond that. So like we're talking an extensive contract. You still have, and he's making like his cap hit's like $12 million a year once the team eats the dead cap. So like very inexpensive for the level of play you could get out of Colton Miller.
And
I mean, he's going to cost a pretty penny.
I also wouldn't underestimate the Raiders' ability to give you a good deal, because this is the same team that thought that Jimmy Garoppolo was an upgrade. You know, like, they've made some very questionable decisions there. Mike Mayock or no Mike Mayock in Las Vegas the last couple of years that would have me believe that Andrew Berry sees them as food. Okay.
Right. But as far as proven vets, that's kind of what you're looking at. Like, there's no other option out there as far as a proven vet. One, you're going to have to pay a pretty penny. I think Garrett Bowles will be a lot cheaper to acquire than people think. I think you could probably get him for like a 4th round pick.
Is it because of the contract?
the contract. I think Sean Payton is willing to just shell some stuff out, shell some players out right now. I think he wants to dismantle it. I think he's going to fight to get the GM fired. I think Sean Payton's going to fight like hell to get his own guys in the building. So it wouldn't surprise me if Garrett Bowles went for a lot less than you would think he would go for.
If he gives away Garrett Bowles, he hates Russ.
Yes. Oh, there's already no doubt in my mind that he hates Russ. There's already no doubt in my mind that he hates Russ.
Oh man, what is going on with? I have yet to figure this out because football locker rooms are very easy to win over if you are a football player. Like they're not hard. Especially if you're known for being a good one. Like, look at it. I just take a look at some of the names that have had decent enough reputations in the NFL, and then look what they've done. Like, it's a long list of not the most reputable characters being in a locker room that people are fine with. Right. But for whatever reason, squeaky clean Russ rubs and it's not just it's like one thing. It's like, oh, the coaches love you, but the players hate you, because that's a common dynamic with quarterbacks. It's like the coaches don't like you, the front office don't like you, the players don't like you, his offensive linemen don't like him. That's so wild. Like the offensive, you know how much a quarterback has to do to not have the offensive linemen like you? Like Baker Mayfield, one of the most polarizing people to play quarterback in recent memory, right? People either have a harsh opinion of him or love him. But people still loved Baker, right, that were on this team. Nobody stands up for Russ. Like, maybe Jerry Jeudy, but I feel like Jerry Jeudy's standing up for himself, not Russ.
Right. Well, he's about to get traded too, so he's out there fighting for his life right now. Yeah.
And I think Jerry Jeudy out here, like, he kind of took a stand with Russ, and they was like, we don't like you too. Like, that's how toxic Russ is. I'm like, I don't understand it. I can't put my finger on it. It don't make any sense, but they dislike, like, it's not just one coach. It's been 3 coaches. Like, everybody from that Legion of Boom team hates him. He wasn't making that much money during Legion of Boom. He won a Super Bowl. He was a good player, and nobody is like, that's my guy. Marshawn Lynch isn't even like, that's my guy. Marshawn Lynch.
Did you hear the story about how it was after, I think it was after the Super Bowl, they had lost that game, and Marshawn wanted to reach out to Russ. And he had to go through Russ's publicist to even get his number. And then the publicist was like, Russ will call you. And it was like, it was the team's player personnel guy. And then the personnel guy got back to Marshawn and was like, hey, Russ is going to call you. And then Russ called him back from a restricted, like the star 67, so that he didn't have his number. So that Marshawn didn't have his number. I think Russ just has this thought that he's the guy that everybody needs to respect and like honor, that he is the guy. But like,
Marshawn Lynch is famous too. What are you doing? Like, dog, he don't got another phone. Like, there are so many other ways to play that. You could just have another line. You're Russell Wilson. Just have a line for the team.
Have a burner, yeah.
Yeah, that's it. That's what most guys do, right? Like, have a line you could cut off at 5 and a line that you have after 5. What is it? Questionable stuff. Like, I just wonder what it's like to be in the locker room with him, because it's like he's a politician. Like, there are politicians who are more liked than him. Like, it don't make any sense that he is this well unliked. But let's talk about some of these young guys that you brought up. The list that you sent me here in the DMs. Yoshi Namiman, I'm sorry for that. I mispronounced that. Ezra Cleveland, Boise State product. I think he was somebody that people were talking about late first round, that 2020 year, St. Wills, Jet Wills. He's a starter right now for Minnesota. And Dylan Reduns, who, if I remember correctly, pummeled my Youngstown State Penguins at North Dakota State. So, always fun.
Yeah. So
yeah, he's a Bison.
Yeah. So I went back to 2020. I went all the way back to the 2020 draft. You had asked me, go back, find some guys who fit Andrew Berry's mold, who aren't currently starting, that like just could come in and maybe upgrade this room. And Ezra Cleveland is starting, but he plays for the Vikings. He was a second round pick of the Vikings. And he's playing guard for the Vikings right now, but was touted as a tackle coming out of Boise State. All three of these guys are hella athletic, so that they check off like the athletic testing boxes. But Minnesota is like in this weird thing. Like clearly this offseason, the front office made a decision like we're going to tear down a little bit, get rid of some aging vets. They're probably going to do the same thing this offseason. Like it was very evident this offseason that the Vikings knew this one score luck is not something we're going to bank on and try to run this back. Like they knew where they were kind of at financially, talent wise, and said we probably need to take a step in the opposite direction. And if they continue to do that, Ezra Cleveland, second round pick, 2020. This is the last year of his deal. Like it wouldn't cost a lot of money to get him. A team that's won one game this year. So like, how much would it cost to go out and get that guy? Again, he can play tackle, can play guard. So that's kind of my thought process for Ezra. He was actually linked to the Browns back in 2020 when everybody's like, oh no, the Browns, they might trade down and take a tackle late in the 20s. They might take a wide receiver and trade back in, all those discussions that were happening in 2020. Ezra Cleveland was the guy that they were like, well, if they come back in, they want Ezra Cleveland, blah, 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 blah. So that would be really ironic. And his last name's Cleveland. So.
Ezra Cleveland's last name. Yeah. I think they're just gonna have to get creative with how they try to like fix this thing, right? Because with Jed, the problem is the volatility, the unpredictability of when and how he gets beat, right? I think that's one thing. If quiet is kept, you can have a bad offensive lineman out there, but if like the quarterback's like, okay, he's just gonna get beat, like he's gonna be beat inside, he's gonna ride him out. I can move around that, right? There are ways to be bad on the offensive line and still get away with it, right? And some of that is just having a ton of talented offensive linemen out there, and then just, hey, we'll just deal with the one guy who's struggling. And some of it's just like, hey, knowing what to expect out of these guys. And like, it's like with Jed, it's like, okay, if you're going to get beat inside, be really good at making him run the arc, and he's not good at either of those things. So, and like Jadeveon Clowney, and what I worry about with Jed is like when he's going up against these guys who aren't that familiar with him, I think he's going to be okay. It's the guys that are familiar with them that are going to be a problem. Alex Highsmith whooped them, right? Steelers see us twice a year. He's familiar. Jadeveon Clowney, very familiar with Jed Wills, played on the team for a while. Now he's in the Ravens. He looked like all pro Jadeveon Clowney against Jed Wills. And when you play Cincinnati, we saw this with Trey Hendrickson, who's been on Cincinnati for a little while. So I think it's the familiarity that gets Scott, that's going to get Jed in trouble. And you have a little bit of time here between games, between division opponents, before I think that becomes another problem. So I think Jed's going to be relatively okay. Do you think that's going to lull this team into a false sense of security with them? Or do you think that they're thinking along the same lines of like, yeah, he'll be all right, versus these guys that see him like once every 4 years, but these guys who see him every year, they're going to whip him. Like it just is what it is.
Highsmith has his number. Traditionally, Jed's actually had Hendrickson's number. So like going back to 2021, Jed's best game as a pro is probably that first Bengals game in 2021. He whoops Trey Hendrickson.
It is hilarious because like that is all a product of like we just don't respect them like they should, because we beat them all the time. It's like, nah, I'll be good this game.
But with Jed, what I think it is like, again, his foot speed is evident. Like the dude's quick. The dude's got the foot speed. Dude's hands are like historically good. He's got a really nice snatch trap. When they're not calling holdings on snatch traps, I think his placement's decent. But with him, I feel like it's just a lapse of, on this concept, Deshaun's dropping 5 steps. I really need to hit two kick steps here, and then really like try to get hands on. He's like taking 3 kick steps, giving the entire inside. And with a quarterback like Watson, like, get beat outside, man. Just get beat outside. Why are you setting so wide? If you get beat outside, you're giving him a lane to step up into. Like, if you're getting beat inside, they're crashing right into his chest. Like, he's got nowhere to go. So, like, I think there's just a lot of situational awareness that hasn't clicked for him yet. Like, okay, this is an RPO. I'm going to jump set. This is a play action, 5-step drop. I gotta probably kick step 2 and then get vertical. Like he's setting way too wide before getting vertical or before getting hands on guys. And I just think that's where the breakdown's coming in. That and I don't think his anchor's a lot softer than it ever was at Alabama for whatever reason. So people are working through his chest real easily. I did think he had his best game of the season against the Niners, but again, it could be that lack of familiarity. You know, those 3 division opponents to start the season.
Mhm.
Could have been that lack of familiarity, but I did think he had his best game outside of that one penalty. I don't think you would have mentioned Jed Wills on Twitter. You wouldn't have seen his name mentioned on Twitter outside of that one penalty. Then everyone's like, "Oh, this guy fucking sucks. Get rid of this guy." But he's been bad this year. There's no way to go anywhere else other than that. He's been bad this year. But I think it's more that situational awareness. Like he needs to know, like, okay, I gotta hit 2 kicks and then get my hands on, or I gotta hit 1 kick and get my hands on, or I got a jump set. I think it's that kind of lack of awareness for him.
Yeah, like when do you expect that? Like at some point, it's like either it's going to kick in or it's not, or
Right.
or you're past that point of it kicking in. 'Cause he's just like in his 4th year. You know, at some point this should be in there, right? Like of having that kind of awareness. And it's not like he hasn't played a ton. He's played a ton. You know, so it's at some point it's like when do you call it? Like when do you call it DOA on it? Because it's like it's expecting something to happen, but I'm like, I don't know. Like we're past the point of development with linemen, because the developmental arc for a lineman is generally longer than most positions. When do you feel comfortable calling it with the offensive lineman? Because I mean, like the Bills got in this place with Wyatt Teller, right? Where they're like, it's not happening, and they traded him.
And that was a year in. I don't know why they made that decision. Like
that was crazy.
Decided, all right, see ya. That's a good question. You know, so with a guy like Jed, I think his first round pedigree and the evident foot speed, the evident hands, allowed me to say, like, I think there's still something there. Let's push it a little bit more. I even this summer I was like, yeah, it's a no brainer to pick up his option. Like if you look at what guys are getting paid to play offensive tackle, I was like, yeah, man, like pick it up, whatever. And I still think they could trade him for. I think it won't be as hard to trade him. The assets will be lower than what you would want, but like I don't think it would be hard to find a team to take him, predominantly because there are not 64 good offensive tackles in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
So there aren't 64 good offensive tackles. You're going to find some GM who will stick to their pre-draft evaluation of him and say, like, I want that guy. He's under contract for another year after this. I can see what I can do. So even if that's a day 3 pick, I don't think it would be hard to find a taker for Wills.
Do you think that the Browns' reputation for developing offensive linemen is going to be something that hurts them in trying to trade Jed Wills?
Maybe because Bill Callahan does have
Bill Callahan's there, and it's like it's not like it's a Jimbo Fisher situation where it's like, he can't do it, I'm gonna do it.
Right. And I do think that probably will play into it, especially when you look across the line from him and you see a 4th round rookie who is playing extremely well. And again, it's worth noting that yes, Dawan Jones is playing well, but that is a 99th percentile outcome for a day 3 offensive lineman. Like if he's
a 99th percentile human.
Yes, he is. Yes, like that is not normal for a rookie to come in like that and completely dominate. Like Nick Bosa can't work through that guy's chest. Like reigning defensive player of the year, TJ Watt, back to the last 2 defensive player of the year, cannot work through this guy's chest, which is their go-to. That's a 99th percentile outcome. So like, I think there's also this, like, especially in Cleveland, because I've noticed a lot of people who follow the Browns don't really keep tabs along around the rest of the league, which, you know, if you're a fan of the Browns and you don't like watch film and you don't study the NFL, why would you? I get it. But like, so they see in the building, like, well, why did this guy pick it up right when he came in the building and this guy's in year 4 and he hasn't? When like, yeah, that's a fair point to some extent, but like also Dawan Jones is a 99th percentile outcome league-wide. Like historically, that's not normal for this to happen.
Yeah. What were those pre-draft interviews like that he fell to the 4th round? What could you, he is 6'8", moves well, and long as you've ever been. Jalen, like I say this with Jalen Carter, he technically got a DUI or a racing accident that people thought might have been a DUI. You gotta be careful. That resulted in the death of 3 people. And people were like, only falls to 8. What was Dawan Jones doing? Like some of this stuff is like, he must have said something that offended football guys to their core. Because you remember, like Bill Callahan was kind of doing the boo-boo face after they made this pick, right? And it's like, like people will wonder, how does a guy that massive do it? Like he did something. Like either him leaving the Senior Bowl like out of nowhere really concerned people.
That's part of it.
Yeah, or
yeah,
but it's like there are so many things that NFL GMs know about that they're like, I'll take a chance. They took a chance on Greedy Williams. I mean, not Greedy Williams, on Justin Justin,
Gilbert.
what was his name? Gilbert, without meeting him and with hearing not recommendations things from the coaches at Oklahoma
Ray
State.
Farmer.
Yeah, it was like, nah, he's athletic. We'll take him at 8 in the greatest draft in this generation. Like, that's how this process usually goes. It's like for Dawan Jones to fall to the 4th round, what did he do? Was like, I know Pittsburgh was insanely low on him, and it's like, was it one of those things where Mike Tomlin's word just like scared everybody off of him? Like, because I couldn't imagine, like, once he got past the third round, like, it's no way, that's not worth it. And then he got to the 4th, and I was like, this is impossible. Like, I know people like Vach, I respect his evaluations on offensive lineman Vach Lombardi, and he was telling me all year, that's the guy, when you look at the tape, had the best tape in college football that's draft eligible, in his opinion. And it's like, how does a dude like that fall? Because it's not like any of these problems showed up on tape at Ohio State. It just was like it was a vibe check that went wrong with him that cost him 4 rounds of positioning. Hey, our luck though, right? Like,
yeah, I mean, we'll take it. So yeah, I do know that the Senior Bowl thing was really off-putting because like he just decided to leave. He dominated the first day and just decided to leave.
Dominated and left. And I will always be on the side of forever. I'll always forever be on the side of, but he dominated. Like,
that's fair. And then at his pro day, at Ohio State's pro day, he opted not to weigh in, which led a lot of people to believe that he ballooned, like after the combine, after like the pre-draft process was kind of winding down, that he kind of let himself go because he opted not to weigh in, and so teams were put off by that. I do know as well. Apparently at Ohio State Senior Bowl, Mike Tomlin actually audibly blurted out like, he did what? Like when they said he opted not to weigh in. Like I know that happened. So I think he did. I don't think the basketball stuff played into it as much as people say the basketball stuff played into it. I don't buy that. But
leaving to the NBA, it's not real.
Right. Right.
Yeah, it just, hey, look, shout out to Mike Tomlin. You know what I mean? We traded up to take David Njoku, so they didn't get TJ Watt. So, it worked out for us the other way, because remember that one? The Browns traded up for David Njoku, which worked out kind of if you don't think about what happened after it. But yeah, they traded up for David Njoku to stop the Steelers from drafting him. And the Steelers like, damn, I guess I have to take TJ Watt. Thank you for getting that one back for us, Mike. You know what I mean? But it's going to be interesting to see what the solutions are for this offensive line. Cory, thank you for coming on. Let them know where to find you. I know you brought your podcast back, and that's been fun to see back out there. Always good to have more great podcast options. So let them know where to find you, man.
Yeah, so fake Cory Kinnan on Twitter is where I post a lot of my content. I do have an NFL draft Substack called Daft on Draft. And then I also am the managing editor at Browns Wire, USA Today's Browns content site. I'm the managing editor there as well. So that's where all my Browns written content is at Browns Wire. So those are the three places. And a little humble brag here. My draft guide this year, I did have Dawan Jones as my 38th overall prospect. So I'm going to live that up a little bit, take that.
Luke Whippler was up there too, another Browns pick.
Yeah, I had a 3rd round grade on him, and I think he's playing. I mean, again, they're in a luxury position where they don't even have to dress him most of the time. But yeah, so I'll victory lap that, I guess. But those 3 places predominantly are where you can find me. And then Nothing Rhymes with Orange is my Browns podcast that I host as well.
All right, make sure you guys check them out. Cory, thank you for coming on. Everybody have a great day. Have a good rest of their night.